Hey there, welcome everybody. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I blame Matt Hatch from the Dusty Wheel. It was his fault. Um, First of all, welcome to the stream. If you guys have not noticed, I have a guest here with me. This is Riddhima.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hi.
First
How's
time
it going,
ever.
everyone?
Yeah, welcome. We have a lot to talk about. I've been looking forward to going back and forth and talking a little bit with you because I know for those, first of all, before we get started, tell all these people who you are. Like, what do you do? What's your background with the Wheel of Time? Like, tell everybody about yourself.
Well, as for what I do, I have a booktube channel here on YouTube. I talk about books, and I am a huge Wheel of Time fan. I used to think I was a pretty big Wheel of Time fan, but this past year has taught me that I am probably just like I'm kind of like more of a casual fan, compared to some people who have like literally been following this series since like Eye of the World came out in 1990. So, but I am a really big Wheel of Time fan. I read the series when I was like 12 or 13, and it's one of my favorite series of all time. So I'm very excited for the
I'm with
show.
I'm with you on that. I it's funny because like every time you think you're a really good Wheel of Time fan, you come across somebody who like totally outdoes you. Like I
Oh
think I've
yeah.
read the books a lot, and I'm like, oh, you're over 100 times now. Awesome. You have the whole
I
book
know.
memorized. Like,
No,
cool.
I frequently like forget things that happen in the series. I'm just like, "Oh, Rand is like I'm just like, "What?" Yeah, there's people who are like, yeah, they just have like an encyclopedic knowledge of the series, and I'm just in awe of those people.
Well, don't worry because you have YouTube there. So anytime you make a mistake in one of your videos talking about it, you can be very certain that somebody will make sure. So that's how YouTube works.
Uh-huh.
Well, welcome. So if you are new to this, so there's no agenda here. We're basically going to talk a lot about the Wheel of Time. There is a lot going on right now. Now, I know one thing, and I guess we're going to transition because I want to tell everybody this. Like, you're like the biggest Egwene stan on Twitter, or am I right on that? Like,
I don't know if I'm the biggest one, but I feel like I'm definitely like annoying about it. I'm probably like the most annoying person about it on Twitter. But yeah, I really love Egwene. She's my favorite character in Wheel of Time.
so let's talk about that real quick before we get into talking about like all the scenes and all the stuff. Like, um, she's not my favorite, so I'll say that up front. She's also in
Hmm.
my top five, though. Like, she's
Hmm.
one of my favorites. Nynaeve is my favorite character. She's my girl. Um,
Hmm. Yeah.
why Egwene? Like, what is it about Egwene that you connect with, that you love so much? Like,
Hmm. Well, first of all, how spoilery are we going on the
oh,
stream?
we are full spoilers here. I don't know if
Okay.
you're gonna watch me because like we're so bad about this anyway. So yeah, spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. So here we go.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think Egwene is my favorite character, especially because of her like late series arc.
Hmm.
Um, like I really love how much she goes through, and I think that like anyone can just like relate to, or maybe not relate to, but admire how much she is willing to put up with in the name of what she believes is right. Especially like during her time in the tower when she's like being tortured daily,
Hmm.
and she like I just admire her like strength and fortitude so much. And yeah, like I yeah, like I'm sure everyone has like struggled with mental health at some point in their life,
Hmm.
and like for me, books have always been there for me, and like Wheel of Time is definitely like a comfort series. And Egwene especially, I remember being like 12 or 13 and reading the part in like I think it's like Fires of Heaven or like Shadow Rising or something, when she's in the Aiel desert, and there's this part where like Egwene has to like run around the camp like 50 times,
Hmm.
and like in the like dialogue, or not the dialogue, like the narration, it says that Like even though the wise women wouldn't like check to see if she actually ran the 50 laps or whatever, like she still did it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like stuff like that, like little character details about her that I just love so much, and they've like informed my character a lot,
Mhm.
and I've like learned so much from her. But I mean, Nynaeve is amazing. I love Nynaeve. I feel like Nynaeve stands and Egwene stands are just like besties. Like
Mhm.
they just go together so well, you know?
Well, you know what it is. So I first of all, the thing I think I appreciate, I did. I'll be frank. I did not like Egwene the first time I read the series, and I think it took me a while to figure out why. She
Mhm.
reminds me of my younger sister so much, and we have like a very like we obviously we love each other to death, but we would fight a lot when we were
Mhm.
growing up
Yeah.
because like she's really smart and she knows what she's about, and like she's just got a very similar demeanor, and I think for whatever reason that clashing, I just felt that with Egwene the first time I read it. Now obviously I've read
Mhm.
the series a lot more times, and you do like I got trashed on last week on the live stream. I was talking about how Egwene is the best leader in the books. um
Mhm.
she's actually a leader, unlike the other people who kind of force people to follow them or
Mhm.
are shitty at it, like Perrin. You know, I just,
Yeah.
it's but I what I
I
love,
would agree. I think Egwene is definitely the best leader. Like,
absolutely she is.
she's the one who I mean, just imagine yourself in her position, like, everything that she's able to accomplish, and, like, she doesn't get help, you know? Like, she has Swan, obviously, but Swan is, like, less of a help than anything like, she's kind of, like, not very helpful at all considering the position that she's in, um, when she's, stilled and whatnot, but, yeah, I definitely think that Egwene is one of the best leaders.
Well, Egwene is kind of a product of her trauma. If you really look
Mhm,
at, like, she was forced to her potential by the Shanshan, right? Like, that
mhm,
captivity kind of informed, like, that was her growing up because, like, before that, you could kind of argue she was kind of a bratty know-it-all girl, right?
mhm.
And she gets captured by
Yeah,
the Shanshan, and that's a horrific experience, and she sort of comes back obviously with an edge to her but also far more powerful, right? Because
mhm,
they did what they did. And so then she kind of goes off with you see these different events in her life sort of evolve her character, and I think that's the biggest thing I appreciate about Egwene. The part I think that Nynaeve, I don't know what it is about Nynaeve that totally connects with me more, but I love Nynaeve's arc. I think that's the
mhm,
piece where it's like she goes from being super insecure, right, about who she is, but she shows it by being tough, right, and being
mhm,
snappy at people, but that's really just her insecurity. And you watch her get to the end of the series, and she has this back and forth with Egwene. Like at the beginning of the series, she's kind of the mentor to Egwene, right? Egwene
mhm,
sort of passes her at a certain point in maturity and in like ability and all these different things, right? And then you see at the very end of the series where Nynaeve is in her testing, and she's sort of like, you know what? If you guys want me to walk instead of run to save people so I can look cool, screw off. I'm not gonna. I don't even care about being
mhm.
that. And like that to me is Nynaeve's biggest badass moment. I know she's got a lot of them.
Yeah.
Anyways, I
I love Nynaeve, though she's definitely, like she's kind of like fake it till you make it, and then, like, at the beginning of the series, she's kind of, like, very, like, blustery, and she, like, talks big, and then, like, by the end of the series, she, like, backs it up, if that makes sense? But, yeah, Nynaeve is great, and I love that moment too when she, like, does her Aes Sedai testing, like yeah, she's so great. I love Nynaeve so much, she's amazing.
well, they're really just great. There's a lot of great characters in the series, and I think that's to kind of shift the talk a little bit about the show because that's I think what everybody's here for anyway. Um,
Mhm.
the To me, I've said this a couple times on my channel. I'm curious your thoughts. Like, I'm totally fine with plot changes. I've kind of come to terms with the thought that like it is an adaptation. They're gonna change things. They have to a degree.
Mhm.
But the but here is this: the part that will be a no go for me is if they mess up the characters, right? Like they can change the plot, but they need to keep Egwene in the sense like not
Mhm.
necessarily the thing she does, but who she is, right? They need to
Yeah.
keep Nynaeve. And one of the things that during the panel that made me feel a lot better is you heard Zoe Robbins talking about Nynaeve, and she was like, yeah, she's just super insecure, and it kind of like she basically said what we were just talking about, and it was like, yes, you guys get it.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
that was the time to me where I really felt more confident, because after the first trailer, I was a little worried they were going to make Nynaeve too much of a badass at the beginning of the story. Like
Hmm.
she is, but she isn't. Does that make any sense? Like, I don't
Yeah,
know.
like Eve definitely has to grow into herself. Like that's her whole like her whole arc is about her
Mhm.
becoming, she has incredible potential, and then like her arc is about her growing into that potential and actually achieving that. And so yeah, like if Nynaeve were to start out like just completely having everything figured out, that would just it would ruin her character.
Yep.
Um but yeah, I like when it comes to the show, I think what I'm really going to like the way I'm going into it is I'm going to let them set my expectations, like obviously with trailers and whatnot, but more so than anything, like with the first 3 episodes, like I'm going to let them set my expectations
Yeah.
instead of like, instead of going into it with expectations, and then I'm going to sort of judge the first season based on how, like, internally consistent it is, and not necessarily, like, do they cut this, like, plot line or something or whatnot? Like, I'm going to judge, like, is the writing internally consistent within the show? And I'm kind of, like, almost gonna look at it like it's not even an adaptation and just kind of, like, think of it, "Is this a good show?" Like, I
Yeah.
think you've said that before in videos, is, like, they're really not like, they can't be making the show for book readers, you know? So, like, you kind of have to really temper your expectations and realize that, like, they're making the show for, like, a wider audience, and that means that they're going to be focusing on making a good show, hopefully, and
Hmm.
maybe that means that they'll, like, step on our toes a little bit as book readers, but yeah, like I'm definitely going to like let them set my expectations, and then like if they set up something in like episode 1 and then it doesn't make sense in like episode 7, like that's when I'm going to be upset versus them like sort of off the bat changing something. Like I'm going to they can change basically anything and I'll be almost fine with it, you know? Like
Yeah.
that's kind of how I'm going into it.
I agree with that. I think we know there are changes coming. Like again, they've said that they've been very clear that there were changes. I also, on the flip side, like I think we've been leaning so far into a lot of changes. I actually don't think as much is going to change as people think.
Mhm,
I
yeah.
really don't. Like I don't think as much will be different as people think will be different. I think there are
Mhm.
going to be, and Brandon Sanderson actually described this. He's like, the changes are similar to like the changes when they adapted Fellowship of the Ring. Like
Yeah.
there are changes to that, but for the most part, it's the same story, right? Like
Yeah.
there are times where it's
Mhm.
different. Like Arwen in the movies saves them rather than I think it's Glorfindel. Like I don't know if you know the books, but
I haven't read it's been a long
what?
time since I've
You're
read
a
Lord of the Rings.
booktuber and
I
you
thought
know
this was
Lord
a
of
Wheel of Time stream.
the Rings. It is. It is. It is. No worries. But yeah, there's differences there, but they're not major ones. And
Mhm.
I'm assuming, have you seen Lord of the Rings movies?
Yeah, I have.
Okay,
But I will
so
say, not to switch the metaphor, but, for Dune just came out and I watched it and I thought it was a really, really good adaptation, and it was kind of like the same thing with, like, Lord of the Rings where they, like I don't think they changed a lot, but they, like, changed a little bit, you know?
hmm I don't think it's tons. I would liken it again. I feel like if we get as close of an adaptation to Dune,
Yeah.
I'll be happy. I'll be happy with that. I know some people might not be, but I'll be happy with it.
Yeah, like, I was surprised with how similar Dune was, like, the movie, like, to the books, because there were certain lines that I remember from the books that they, like, just ripped off, like, like, not ripped off, but, like, they used them in the movie, and, yeah, I love that in adaptations when they, like, use the same line and you, like, recognize it.
Yep.
Are there any lines specifically that you remember, like, from Eye of the World that you, like, want to be in the show?
Well, okay. So not necessarily like a line per se, but one thing that I like, a scene that I want is going to be Moraine doing the basically telling the story of Manetheren, but I
Yeah.
don't think we're going to get it. Um,
Yeah,
Don't think we're
I
gonna.
understand why not, because it is like a super like info dumpy scene, but it's so well written. Like,
Well, it's actually
it's
one of the
so
things.
awesome.
It's one of the things that like Rosamund Pike is reading the audiobook. Like they're gonna release a new Eye of the World, and I love Michael Kramer and Kate Redding. So to be very clear, like I love that. But the idea that I get to hear Moraine read that,
Mhm,
I'm kind of excited just for that. I know that's
mhm, yeah,
um
for sure.
well, okay, real quick. First of all, guys, if you are joining us, like and subscribe. Like the video, it helps people, it helps YouTube actually tell people about these live streams. And if you are not subscribed, to do so. Where Riddhima, where can they find you? What is your YouTube channel? Do you want to type it in the chat? And or mods, can
Yeah.
you make sure you link her channel? Um, that would be awesome if you could. So where people can find you, you are, I think, I love different perspectives on the Wheel of Time. And
Mhm,
I love some of the thoughts that you have. So that's why I definitely wanted to have you on here. And I definitely want to talk about some of the trailers and what it might mean for your favorite character. Because
mhm,
you being the Egwene stan, we have seen a whole lot of Egwene in some of these clips.
yeah,
Are we seeing
yeah.
more or less or about what you thought we would get?
I think we're seeing more because for some reason I definitely thought that they would, like, focus more on Rand because he is,
Mhm.
like, obviously the Dragon Reborn, but I love that they're kind of going for this angle of, like, who is the Dragon Reborn, like,
Right.
they're really catering like, again, they're catering to people who haven't necessarily read the books because that's so many people, like, most people have not read Wheel of Time, and,
Right.
like, those are the people that Amazon wants to, like, appeal to because, they want this to be, like, a mainstream show, so I don't know where I was going with that, but, yeah,
Well,
like, I've definitely seen more Egwene than I thought I was, but, like, I think it makes so much sense.
and I think they're trying to obviously Egwene is the I believe Egwene gets the second most amount of page time in the entire book series. So
Mhm,
for anybody that's like, well, Egwene doesn't have that big of a role in Eye of the World, Rafe has said repeatedly, we're not adapting Eye of the World, we're adapting the series, right?
mhm,
Egwene is essentially the second biggest character in the series behind Rand.
yeah,
And arguably they're 1A and 1B. Um, because they get very close. We get POVs from both of them and a lot of them.
mhm,
So
yeah,
that being said, so I think they're definitely setting that up. Now I want to watch. I'm going to show the Moraine clip, the quest clip, and then we'll come back and talk about it because I think there's something at the end that came up on our last live stream about you that I want to talk about. So I'll tease that. We're going to watch it and then we'll come back and talk about it. All right.
What is an Aes Sedai? Well, the Aes Sedai are a powerful group of female channelers trained in the White Tower of Tarvalon and led by the Amelin Seat. Now, although
That was the wrong clip. And
I was
I
like
don't think I actually have the right clip. So damn it. It is not clipping. Okay. What I was going to talk about until I shittily did that.
No worries.
Hey, it is what it is. I told you there's no Taylor here. This is not.
Everyone's already watched it, like, a
I know
billion
they have.
times, so
I don't
you're
want to
fine.
show it, but let's talk about this. So the piece that I wanted to talk about, Moraine on that voiceover for her quest clip says, "Who is the Dragon Reborn?" Right?
Mhm,
As she asks the question, we get Egwene, Rand, Perrin, and Matt, which
mhm.
of course triggered people because how dare they include Egwene in that? Now, I don't have any problems with it because, to be frank, I don't think they're making Egwene the Dragon Reborn. I
Yeah,
think that
they're
would be
not.
such a dramatic change in the story. I don't know why they would do that. Um,
Mhm,
But I do think that they want new viewers to think that she could be, at least at the beginning of the story. Is that your take too,
mhm.
or do you have a different thought on this?
No, yeah, that definitely seems to be what they're doing, yeah, like, I definitely like, they're just trying to, like, throw off people, and, I mean, I think it's probably gonna work for, like, most people
Uh
because
huh.
like, 99% of people are not, like, following along, the like teaser drops. They're just gonna like see it on YouTube one day or something and just be like, "Oh, this looks cool," you
Uh,
know. Yeah, like I definitely think they're trying to like dupe people. But yeah.
well, so there was a rumor, and this is what started. You were actually a topic of discussion on last week's live stream here. Yeah,
Wait,
you're
really?
like, wait, how did I come up? Okay, so people, and I didn't see this because I only watched part of the Dusty Wheel. People were saying,
Mhm.
I think incorrectly, but they were saying that you were like, no, no, Egwene could be the Dragon Reborn in this story. Now,
Wait, I said that?
yeah, that's
Wait,
what people
if
were.
I said that, I was just like,
I thought that.
what? I
I
have
thought
no
that.
recollection of this.
What would you be open like if they did make that change? What would you think about it? Like that change? Like, would you be for it or against it? Putting you on the spot.
Well, I mean, I think Egwene doesn't need to be the Dragon Reborn. Like her arc is already so interesting
Mm-hmm.
without her being the Dragon Reborn. And yeah, like I think I might have said that just like as a joke or something, but
Yep.
because earlier today in my Discord, we were also talking about like, what if they did change who the Dragon Reborn is? It's like a fun thought experiment, but I don't think they're gonna change it because that's like adapting Harry Potter and making like Hermione the
Right.
like I don't she doesn't need to be the Dragon Reborn because she's already a main character in her own right. So like her being the Dragon Reborn adds nothing to her character arc. Like she's the Emerald Seat. Like she doesn't need to be the Dragon Reborn. But yeah, I mean, I just think in terms of like the marketing and whatever, it's fun to like sort of add Egwene into the mix. And definitely like why not in all the turnings of the wheel, like a woman can't be the Dragon Reborn. Like it's so ridiculous. It's kind of like Doctor Who, where it's like they've had like all these men be
Male
Doctor Who, but like they can't have a woman be the Doctor Who or whatever.
Well, if you get into like RJ, like he talks about this, like the men are always the dragon, but there are female equivalents that happen in different ages because we've only seen this. Like there's
Mhm.
a major theory that Nakomi is a previous female version of the dragon, not necessarily the dragon, but like a
Uh-huh.
female chosen one, essentially.
Oh, okay.
That's
I
what.
actually, well, I don't have a theory, but this is like a complete tangent. Sorry,
Sure,
you mentioned Nakomi and I had to jump on
hear
it.
it.
So this is actually not my theory. Shout out to Alex. He's my Discord mod, and I will link his Twitter if anyone wants it. But my Discord mod Alex has this amazing theory that Nakomi is actually Egwene. Because if you think about it, you know how like Rand
Hmm.
gets to come back to life, like
Yeah.
after everything, and Egwene kind of goes out in the same way where she like sacrifices herself. And I just think like every like Rand and Egwene have very like parallel storylines and like almost beat for beat, like everything that Rand goes through, like the box, like Egwene goes through the Shan Chan. They have like very similar story beats, and I think it makes so much sense that like Egwene would also get to like come back in some
Mhm.
form. And in the same way that Rand seems to have these like bending abilities, like maybe Egwene would also have those, you know. So
So,
that's like my favorite Nakomi theory,
so taking
and I
that
cannot
theory,
take credit for it. Mhm.
who was then how was Nakomi finding like coming across Avienda?
That's like the pattern stuff, That's where like the pattern bending stuff comes in.
Fair enough.
But
Fair enough.
I feel like it works. It's my
I
headcanon, and if
look.
anyone thinks I'm wrong, I don't want to hear it.
I like it. Matt Hatch would be all about it. He loves those loony theories.
Mhm.
So I think that's awesome. So, anyways, I was started reading some comments.
Sorry, I completely threw off the
No, you
the,
didn't.
the conversation.
I was looking to see if I needed to moderate a comment. Uh, any case, mods, feel free to do ban hammers if you want. You're in charge. But any case, what I was going to say was like, um, let's shift that discussion. So maybe not the Dragon Reborn, because I think this is probably a possibility. Although I have an opinion on it, but I want to hear yours first. What about the rumors that they make Egwene Ta'Veren?
Oh yeah, I heard that. We were talking about this earlier on Discord too, and my immediate reaction to that is that I don't think again that Egwene needs to be Taviran, but also it doesn't change like anything in her
Mhm.
storyline. Like she already goes through like so many weird things, and the only like tiny tidbit of concern I have is like the people who would like use that to sort of like undermine her character. And they don't do that for like the male characters, like Rand, Matt, and Perrin still get, like people still love them and,
Mhm.
you know, give them the credit where their credit is due. But like I feel like with Egwene, she already gets like kind of shit on in the fandom. And like if she were to be Taviran, people would just be like, oh yeah, she just like did that because she's Taviran, like, like they wouldn't give her credit. But at the same time, like it doesn't matter. Like those people are not gonna, like I don't those people already have made up their mind about it. So they're not
Mhm.
like gonna be convinced either way. But I mean, at the end of the day, like I think Taviran is such a like minor thing. Like yeah, like it's I don't know. Yeah,
See,
I feel like it's the same thing either way.
yep. We totally agree here because to me, it would take away from Egwene's arc if she actually had, like, Rand is literally the definition of a Mary Sue in some ways. Like, I mean, but he has plot armor that allows it. Like, being
Hmm.
Taviran basically means things happen the way that he should. But Egwene earns her things, right? Again,
Yeah,
according to the story. So I feel like it would take away from her arc if we gave a
yeah,
reason why these things happened and it wasn't her. Um, so I'm glad we definitely agree on that. And I hope they don't go that route. I really do. I don't think Egwene needs that to be a strong character.
yeah. She does it,
I don't think it.
but
mm,
I
Anyways,
feel like it might be confusing for viewers to be like, oh well, why are only the guys Taviran? Like, why are none of the girls? I could see that kind of being like a concern, but
yeah,
like I just don't like the concept of Taviran in general. Like I don't know if that's unpopular, but I feel like it's kind of like codifying plot armor into like the actual world is a little like it just unbalances things a little bit too much. But I mean, then again, like Wheel of Time is so meta. I think that's like an aspect of the series that is like kind of unique. So maybe if you took that away, it wouldn't be as
no.
interesting. But yeah.
Well, it's definitely built-in plot armor. Jay Diggity, thank you very much, man. The pattern didn't need to keep Egwene on the path it wanted. The boys were resistant a lot of time, and that's a good point. Like Egwene did her thing for sure, and the boys
Mhm.
were like fighting it the whole way.
Yeah.
It actually got annoying to me. I mean, that's actually it's like,
Oh
oh
yeah.
my god, Perrin, just stop. Like,
Yeah. To
stop.
me, it was ridiculous that it was like book 14 and Perrin was still like, oh, I don't want to be a lord. Like, like
Don't call
we're
me
in book
that.
14. Like, come on, dude. Like, get with the program. Like, let's do some stuff. Like, yeah, it was really frustrating, especially with Perrin. But
Take that
I'm
banner
so excited.
down.
Yeah, like I'm so excited for show Perrin because I hope they like they accelerate through that a little bit and kind of like give Perrin some more interesting stuff to do because like when
Yeah,
Perrin does things, like he's such a great character and like I love the idea of Perrin's character who's like this very gentle, like just kind, just like a nice teddy bear guy, Like he's so great, but he kind of gets stunted a little bit at times.
he peaked way too early in the series. Like he was outstanding, I think, in
Shadow
Shadow
Rising.
Rising, and he had some other pieces that I think were great. It was just like I felt like we were repeating the story over and over and over again. So,
Yeah.
anyways, it got old to me, I think, a little bit. But so let's shift back to this. Like, what are you've seen? Obviously, we've gotten like 500 clips now.
Yeah.
Oh,
So many.
hold on. You gotta WL. Thank you. We've gone wigless for much too long. So, in case you didn't know this, this is what happens when people tip and ask for it here. You're gonna have to.
Wow, I love it.
It's a great wig and it's in great shape.
Oh,
And I take
yes,
good
of
care of
course.
it, so you can.
Well maintained.
It's like a cross between um, Karen in Boris
And
Johnson, like the
Scarecrow.
prime minister. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and a Scarecrow. So
Oh, okay.
all of those
I
things.
definitely see the Boris Johnson.
Hmm. But anyways, what I was saying, like we've obviously had a lot of clips. Like, what has been like your favorite one we've gotten so far, where you're just like, okay, that has me the most excited? Which one? Are you going to say all of them?
No,
Okay.
not all of them. I think definitely the Egwene paint scene because it was like it's so different and like it's not in the books
Mhm.
at all,
Yeah.
but it's also Egwene and it's my favorite character. So that makes me excited because I feel like they're gonna take her character and like do different things with it, and that makes me excited because honestly, like I want to be surprised and I want to not know what's going on, you know? Like that's going to be really fun to me. I think even as book readers, like if we all don't know what's going to happen next and I mean, depending on how they write it, I definitely think they can pull it off where we still know like the plot, but we don't know
Hmm.
everything. And I want to be surprised. So that to me was surprising because it's like it still feels like thematically appropriate for Egwene, but it's not something that's in the books. And yeah, I'm just excited for that.
I totally agree. I'm really excited to see. I think some of the changes, like again, as long as they don't change who the characters are, I'm all about it. Sorry, I get the hiccups.
Hmm.
But what I'm looking forward to is not knowing what's going to happen every scene. Like,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? Like, if it's just a straight up adaptation of the book, it's like I know exactly what's happening next.
Hmm.
This is going to have it being different. Like, this is where I've seen people that have read the books are literally not wanting spoilers for the show. Like, so that's awesome because it means you kind of know what's happening, but you don't. I hope it's Musu. Sorry if I said that wrong. I know I'm a bit late to the discussion as I was washing out, but my opinion is Egwene is the single most important character in the story. Ooh, shots fired. Most important, it's hard for me to get there only because of the way the story's written. It's not that I don't think Egwene is awesome. I do.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
I struggle getting to the point where I say she's the most important because I think it's hard to say Rand isn't. Just being
Hmm.
what he is. But do you have different thoughts than mine?
I don't know. Like I think like in fandom, I think people get like really caught up with like the superlative of it all. Like, oh, she's the most this or like she's the most that. And like personally, I think it's just more fun if you like. I mean, yeah, it is fun to like say like, oh, this character is like the most important or something. But
Hmm.
I love Rand. Like, I find it hard to believe that anyone can love Rand and not love Egwene, and like vice versa, just because they're so similar.
Yeah.
Like they literally have like the same character story at times. Like it's I keep saying that, but it's like it's true. Like their stories are so similar. So yeah, like I know I think Egwene is definitely like instrumental and essential to the story. You couldn't take her out, and it wouldn't be Wheel of Time without Egwene. But I don't know if she's like the most important. I don't think even Rand is the most
I
important.
agree with
Like
that.
the whole last book, like the whole last part of the book is about him saying like it was never about me. It was always about like the woman who like
Yep.
whatever. Don't remember the exact words, but like that whole like a monologue that he does at the end of Emma Mary of Light where he's like it's not about me, it's about like all these people. And yeah, that's what Wheel of Time is about, is like the entire cast of characters.
Oof, oof. More shots fired, Rick Franzen. Both of you are bad Watt takes, and Perrin is the GOAT. Parentheses Wolf. Gosh, that is an unpopular opinion right there. Honestly, I like a lot of the characters. Like, there's very few that I literally don't like as characters. Perrin
Mhm.
just drags. It's not so much that Perrin is example to me of somebody who could have they ran out of things to do with him. That's kind of where I felt like they were repeating the same arc. Um,
Mhm.
and where he didn't grow. Like, I feel like his growth stopped, whereas a lot of
Yeah.
other characters kept going. Um, and it almost felt like they ran out. Like I said, they ran out of things to make Perrin do and be a part of the story. Like,
Yeah.
so to that point, real quick, I mean, Brandon Sanderson actually said this in an interview. He was left with almost no notes on what Robert Jordan had for Perrin to do in the last 3 books.
Wow. Really?
So Perrin's whole arc there, aside from being there at the end, right? Aside from that, Brandon Sanderson had to make it all up. He didn't have
Wow.
notes on Perrin. So I wonder, like, what was planned for Perrin? Like, what,
Hmm.
and would that
Yeah.
have, what would have been different?
Yeah, I often say that like Robert Jordan, like if he had finished the series, like it would have been 20 books long. And I just know that he had like something interesting planned for Perrin and we never saw it. Um, but yeah, like the way that Perrin is written as it is in the books, like I like him, but I feel like I have to like edit certain things out from his storyline in order to like him. I don't know if anyone else does this, but there's like Wheel of Time as it exists, and then there's Wheel of Time as it exists with like all my edits and like head canons. And like my head canon of Perrin and Fael is just like amazing, like Chef's Kiss, like they're the best couple ever. And then there's like the actual like Wheel of Time, and like ever since I've started booktube I've started to like realize that I need to like separate those two, because I'll be like, oh yeah, I love Fael, and then someone will like bring up something like horrible that she does in the books, and I'm like, yeah, like I know that she does that, but like in my version of Wheel of Time, like she never does that. So I don't know what that means, but yeah, like I like Perrin in theory, and that's why I'm really excited for the show, because I feel like it's an opportunity to like give his character stuff to do, like you said, you know?
I think it's hard for, like, it's hard even for real Wheel of Time fans to not admit the series has flaws. Like, there are,
Mhm,
it's not perfect. Um,
mhm,
what it ended up being was outstanding, and it is by far my favorite book series. Obviously, I mean, you've said the same thing,
mhm.
but it's not
Yeah,
perfect. And I do feel like the show has a chance to correct some of the things that weren't good. Um,
mhm,
and I think that can be condensing some of the arcs. So, like I said, if Perrin peaked, like if you want to look at the end of Perrin's real arc, it's sort of when he becomes when Elaine anoints him like the High Lord of the Two Rivers. Like,
yeah,
he's accomplished everything at that point. He kind of beat Slayer in the last book, right?
yeah,
But then he has to go beat Slayer again, and like we just go back into the same repeat
yeah,
Wolf Dream stuff where he's learning it again, and now he's got to beat Slayer again, and like it
yeah,
felt like we don't have any new tricks. Like, there's nothing different. Whereas we got to see Matt turn into crazy General Matt.
mhm. I
Like
have so many thoughts about Matt, though.
now,
Matt is, like, a problematic fave of mine. Yeah. But we're talking about Perrin. Let's finish the Perrin talk first.
yeah. Well, and it's a great segue though. We could talk about Matt. I was just gonna say I feel like if they had I just don't know what else you could give Perrin that would advance his arc, like that would advance him as a character at that point. Like,
Mhm.
what
And
he's
yeah.
he's accepted leadership begrudgingly
Mhm,
after 11 books of avoiding it, even though the pattern wasn't going to let him. Right?
mhm,
He forges. I think Art is talking about this in the chat, and it's true. Like, he forged legendary weapon. Like, he helps make a weapon. Like, so I feel
mhm.
like it almost culminates, and then it's like I don't know. I
Yeah.
didn't.
Like, honestly, there's nothing wrong with Perrin sort of, like, becoming a secondary character in the books. Like, I think that Perrin, like you said, like, he peaked and his character arc kind of ended, and, like, he doesn't need to stay a main character for all 14 books, and especially when Fael is right there. Fael has so much growth to go through,
Uh,
like, her whole arc of, like, being this, like, kind of spoiled, like noble, bratty girl. Like I know a lot of people call Egwene bratty, but like Fael is very bratty. Like she to me is more bratty than Egwene. But
Oh,
like it makes sense. Like she's this like noble's daughter, and she kind of like goes off on this like adventure. But you know, like for her, like and then like she kind of eventually like realizes that, you know, she, you know, like in the last book, like she kind of realizes that she's kind of like immature and stuff. But like Fael is such an interesting character. And I think it would have been more interesting if like Perrin had kind of taken the back seat. Like once he becomes the Lord, like he doesn't need to be the focus. Maybe we shift focus to Fael, who has this incredible like spy society, and she's like basically an Aes Sedai without having channeling. And it's really interesting to have a character who's like Fael, who's a woman, who's not an Aes Sedai, but she still has like incredible like
yeah.
she's like influence. And like like that was so interesting. Like the Cha Fael were so interesting, and like we could have done so much with that. But then like that whole like everything with that just gets like sidelined because she gets kidnapped. And then like, you know, obviously everyone knows what happens with that, but like there was so much potential there with like Fael becoming sort of the focus, and then Perrin kind of just like shifting towards like a supporting character role. But yeah,
I would argue this, and we had this discussion on our podcast, which I'll talk about here in a minute, but Fael gets a bad rap from people. If you take out her attitude, like if you take out Dragon Reborn and Shadow Rising from her character arc, and then you introduced her after that, people would like her. It's the stuff she does to Perrin in Shadow Rising, and then the whole Perrin spanks her like that whole thing,
yeah,
like because like
that's what I mean when I like edit stuff out, because I'm like there's certain like moments that like just don't need to be in the series, and they don't add anything, and I just think they're like bad, so I take them out.
Yep. Well, that whole thing is icky. Like she's really shitty. Like his family's dying, and he's trying to get back, and she's playing games, with Loyal and all this. And then flip that around, Perrin spanks her literally. Like what?
Yeah, there's so many weird things happening there.
Yeah, like that whole thing is shitty. But if you take that out, all of a sudden, Fael becomes a much more likable character, and she's a much more competent character. And now
she's incredibly competent.
Yeah,
like she's very politically savvy. She's an interesting character, and I mean, I personally like Fael.
Yep, I think Fael is actually a better character. We talked about this, so we had a whole episode talking about Fael on Tar Valon After Dark, which we're going to segue here real quick because I'm going to do a quick pitch for people like actually sometimes when I do this stuff. So I'm a part of a podcast called Tar Valon After Dark. It's with Rakapa Sedai, Brian, and Jess, the Amelin Seat, formerly of the White Tower podcast. We have been doing this. We are now on episode 30. We're taking a break this week because Jess was moving and all kinds of stuff. But if you have never listened to our podcast, we do. How do I put this? It's very different. Have you ever listened to us? It's okay if you haven't. I won't.
I have listened to a couple of your clips.
Yeah, it's a little bit more of sketch comedy, and then talking about it. We're sort of known for some commercials. So I am going to play our latest commercial, which is a little risque, and we'll play that as a little thing, and then we'll talk about Tar Valon After Dark, and we'll come back and finish talking about the show. So we're going to show that.
Hey, Tar Valon residents. Are you and your special someone struggling in the bedroom? Is the fire gone? Do you need some adventure to reignite your love life? Nothing will set your groins ablaze more than a visit to Erotica Sedai's Pleasure Palace. Erotica Sedai's Pleasure Palace offers the finest and most luxurious intimacy-themed ter'angreal. How can Erotica Sedai help? Well, I'm sure you've heard of a red rod ter'angreal. Well, the Pleasure Palace carries 3 sizes: standard, Aiel, and of course, for you adventurous ones, Ogier. Hey guys, embarrassed that your bits and pieces are a bit too small? Well, you need Erotica Sedai's specialized mirror of Miss Terangreal. It will have you looking like the Tower of Genji. While we're on the subject, guys, you ever wonder if she's faking or not? Well, Erotica Sedai has this patented Keeper of the Chronicles figurine Terangreal. When she hits her climax, the Terangreal will play trumpets and announce, she comes, your Amerlin seed, telling your special lady that she's the most important woman in the world. And of course, letting you know that you did your job. And I'm sure you've heard of Dreamweave Terangreal rings. Well, the Pleasure Palace has ring Terangreals that will help you stay in the mood all night. And for a limited time, Erotica Sedai is offering a once-in-a-lifetime discount. If you book your session here in the next week, you and your significant other can get your very own specialized fantasy dream shard session for 50% off. Erotica will use her dreaming skills and create the fantasy of your dreams. You want to watch him with a Trolloc? Anything is possible. So come on down to Erotica Sedai's Pleasure Palace. You can find us right next door to the Thirsty Tinker Inn in the Tarvalin Red Light District near North Harbor. Once you come see us, you'll never have a problem coming again.
Wow.
Told you I was a little over the line.
Wow.
Anyways, welcome. Yeah, she's yeah, so that's a little taste of Tarvalin After Dark. It's not all that bad.
Mhm.
Yeah, if you all should check us out. I will put up the little banner here so you can find us. greatblight.com/Tarvalin After Dark. Okay, so actually, Ben Butler, Brian did not write that. Brian's type of humor is very different than that. I will let you guess who wrote that one. Okay. So, back to talking about the shows. So, we were talking all about things that you're excited for. We did not get a chance to talk about Matt because I think you wanted to kind of shift and talk about Matt. So, like, what are your thoughts on Matt? Do you like Matt? Do you hate Matt? Do you ambivalent towards Matt? Like, are you gonna piss everybody off by telling them that Matt's the worst character in the book? Or
No, I don't think Matt is the worst character in the book. I just think that, like, talking about Wheel of Time is so complicated because there's like all these like extenuating circumstances, obviously, with the story. And it's like, and like I said, like everyone has their own like headcanons and like their own like interpretation of things. So like when I say like, oh, I don't like Matt, but I love Matt, that means so many things. Like I can't just say like, oh, I like Matt, you know, like there's like an asterisk to that statement, and then there's like an appendix to the asterisk. Like there's just like all these thoughts I have about Matt specifically, but to summarize it, I think that Matt as a character, especially like Robert Jordan's version of Matt, like I saw a lot of potential in him, and I really, really loved him because I feel like he's obviously like a bit of an unreliable narrator, and the way that he presents himself to the world isn't necessarily the way that he actually is. And like my favorite thing about Matt is always that
Mm-hmm.
scene in Lord of Chaos where he like recognizes that Egwene is being like disrespected by all these Aes Sedai, and he's smart. He recognizes that, and he chooses to you know, like kneel in front of her and like kiss her ring and like call her mother. And I like that to me is Matt. Like that's like the best version of Matt, is like that thoughtful boy from Emmons Field who sees his like sister, you know, because I kind of think of all the Emmons Fielders as like siblings, which might be weird now that the show is like really ramping up the Rand and Egwene relationship, but that's a different thing. But like he sees his like little sister being treated badly, and he can't let that
Right.
go, you know? And like,
Right.
but that's not necessarily the Matt that's in the books all the time, especially like the Sanderson version of Matt. And then like you get into like Tuon, and this like concept of slavery, and like Matt being in a position to like do something about that, but he doesn't necessarily do anything about that. But then it's like, you know, there's only 3 books left, and like I didn't really expect Brandon Sanderson to like kind of tackle that whole thing. So yeah, like I just, there's so many aspects to Matt's character that I think like just needed more time to be explored, and we don't have that like in the Wheel of Time. Like there, that's why I say like Wheel of Time should have been like 20 books long, and I probably would have been. Um but yeah, that, even that, like I know people are going to like misinterpret something that I said, but like there's, it's just so complicated. Like Matt is such a complicated character, and he's probably like the most like he's just my problematic fave. Like let's leave it at that. He's my problematic fave.
He's 100% problematic. I think he's the hardest character to adapt. He's the hardest character to write.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
sure.
Brandon Sanderson admittedly struggled writing Matt's, like, understanding Matt's voice, because Matt, people would think that Matt plays the rogue trope, like he's the rogue character, right? But he doesn't always fit
No.
that trope either.
No.
And like, he's not just a prankster. That's not what he is. He is incredibly intelligent and incredibly thoughtful, and he does not. He doesn't want to publicly accept responsibility, but he always privately will, right? Like in his own mind. Like he's always going to do the right thing, even when he says he won't. And it's interesting because like he seems very complex, but at his core, he's very simple. Now, the part with Matt to me that I struggle with is, number one, I mean, I think the obvious one here is Tuon. I feel like Tuon hurts. She makes him more of a gray character, if you will, because like how can Matt be cool with a lady who's essentially running a slave trade? Like, right, and trains quote unquote slaves. Like, you know, it's just, it's a very like, how are you cool with that? Now I understand Aaron, I understand prophecy, I understand he didn't mean for that to I get it. And he wasn't in a, I heard you say like, yeah, he was in a position to make a change, and I don't know that he necessarily was yet, but I think he would be.
That's what I like. I hate that we like leave it off, like where we leave off in the series. Like Matt is essentially like he's just a part of this oppressive system now. Like, and there's really no, like, there kind of is an indication that he will be like, that system will be changing, but like of all the things that we like don't get closure on in Wheel of Time, like the Shan-Chan will always just like bother me, because I know that Robert Jordan had like Shan-Chan Outrigger novels planned, and like I know that was something that he wanted to work on. But like as it is, like what we have just like bothers me. And like I don't even hate Tuon like as a character, like on a meta level. I think that the relationship between Matt and Tuon, like everything else about Tuon notwithstanding, like they have one of the best like courtships. Like they have one of the only courtships in the series where like you actually get to see them meet and like have conversations and like slowly fall in love, whereas like all the other romances, you just kind of like it's like insta love. But yeah, that's what I mean when like I say Matt is so complicated, because we just didn't have enough time to explore everything that we needed to explore with his character.
Totally agree. And you know, I think again, in the time that we did get with him, Sanderson admittedly didn't know how to handle him. You know, so it's and yeah, you're right. Robert Jordan had planned on writing Outrigger novels with him and Tuon. So that's possibly where they might have addressed more of the slavery issue, where they might have, you know, who knows where that could have gone. I do wish that we had seen that. I would have just loved to have had more Wheel of Time stories. In general. I mean, who wouldn't? But it's interesting too, because it does bring up this point, and I'll take a tangent here for a second. Because Amazon currently owns the rights to just the book series. Supposedly, Red Eagle owns the rights to the rest of it, and so they're making this supposedly, quote unquote, Age of Legends movie, which
Oh
If it
yeah.
wasn't them attached to it, I would feel very excited about it, and I would feel pumped about it, and
Hmm.
I would love to see that. Like I would love to see the Age of Legends. Um, I
I
wonder.
would only love to see it if it was Robert Jordan. Like I don't want to see anyone else's take on it.
Well, and that's, but I think we're going to get it. Like I think you're going to get,
Hmm.
if this is successful, right? If the main show line is very successful, you're going to see a sort of Star Warsization of Wheel of Time. Like because it's such an expanded universe, you're going to see what they're doing with Game of Thrones. Like they're making these prequels.
Hmm.
They're making, whether we want it or not, if it's successful, it's going to happen. So,
Yeah.
real
It
quick,
just feels dirty. Sorry,
Eric.
go ahead.
Well, thank you, Eric, for the donation. There, was wondering if you have plans to make a video showcasing all of the people and channels that were involved in making WatCon possible. We absolutely will. You will see all of that when we are able to announce the ticketing and the convention itself. Like we've announced the convention, we've announced the dates. We have not announced details, tickets, how you can buy them. We are expecting that to sell out very quickly, just based on the response that we've gotten. So, but yeah, I would say here by within the next 2 weeks or so, I would expect that you will 2.5 weeks. You'll be able to see when we'll ticket, and in that process, there will be a video or two or some explanations. You'll get to see all the different people involved. There are tons of people. One of them is on the call with me right now. So, well,
I'm very new to it though, I will say. Like I don't want to take any credit,
he's
undue credit.
if you guys don't like anything on the convention, it was Ridhima's idea.
Yeah,
If you like
absolutely.
it, it had nothing to do with it. I'm joking.
Absolutely.
Now we'll definitely talk more about that. That's a great question, and I can't. We'll be able to talk a little bit more about that. And Andrew, so I'm sorry, all of a sudden we're taking WatCon questions. Will there be a virtual component to WatCon? Yes. It will likely not be announced at the first batch of ticketing, but there will be. Yes. Okay. Where were we? We were talking about Matt and how much
Matt.
you love Matt and you love Tuon. I'm joking.
I mean, I do, but like I don't, but I do.
I have an interesting thought on Tuon, and I feel like I think a lot of people immediately are like, "Up, slavery, she's evil," and I don't think Tuon is evil. And I know that sounds, again, it's not. I'm not trying to make excuses for her, but like people that come from various cultures, like I think sometimes it's easy to point fingers at cultural differences while something can be very, very wrong. Like slavery is awful. It's not a cultural difference. Like I don't look at it and go, well, I condone it because they like him, because they grew up with it. But that being said, from her perspective, she didn't necessarily, like, they were raised to believe this.
Yeah.
And I think what I would say is this: we can say the ideal of what people should think, but I also know that people evolve very slowly on their opinions on things. If we think back individually, like I know you're fairly young, but if I think back to like when I was 22, the opinions that I had on things when I was 22 are not remotely the opinions I have on things now. And I'm not saying, again, that is not a justification to say slavery's cool. Yay, Tuon. Like,
Yeah.
what I am saying though is that our reactions typically when we're shown that we're wrong about something are not to immediately go, "Yep, you're right. I was wrong, and our culture's wrong, and let's change." All people's reactions to that is to come up with excuses, which is essentially what Tuon did when she was presented with the idea that, well, wait, all the Suldam can channel.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, and that's what I mean when I say that like it just needed more time.
Yep.
And the fact that we don't have it, like that's why I can like say that like, oh, I know that like Robert Jordan had these books planned, but at the end of the day, like we never got those books, and like all we can really judge is what we have, and what we have is like it's like the first part of that, and like that is what's disappointing to me. And that's what I think, like I just think like in the show, I think either they kind of need to cut that part out or they need to go through with the whole thing and like show that whole arc, because otherwise, like, it's like you're just showing the first arc and then you're like kind of leaving it at that, and it doesn't work, you know, like you need to have the whole story or kind of like take part of it out and like edit it, you know.
It gets on. It's skirting an issue that I don't want to say I feel super strongly about, but it's something that I've noticed that I don't like in a lot of fandoms anymore. Is Daniel Green actually shot out a tweet very similar to this earlier today, where it was sort of the idea that like we cannot attribute character flaws to the authors, right? Like a lot.
I mean, yeah, I don't think Robert Jordan.
No, and
like, yeah.
To be clear, I don't think that anybody thinks that. But where I'm going with this, I guess, is that people want to sanitize the story to take out elements that don't fit our current views of morality. And I say that because, guys, you're all kidding yourself if you think that 50 years from now we're going to have the same idea of what's moral and what isn't. Like that's never been true in history. So things evolve, people evolve, social norms evolve, all of that. So like we cannot I've seen people say, well, we need to take the slavery out of the show because it's bad. And it's like,
yeah, well, just to clarify, I didn't mean to like take out the entire Sean-chan, but just like take out, like they need to edit it. They need to devote time to it and actually deal with it, because I think that the way that it is in the books is not, it's not afforded. Yeah, it's not afforded the gravity that it needs to be afforded.
That makes sense. It doesn't have, I would say, a satisfying conclusion. Now, one would argue, though, that a lot of writers will tell you this, that they deliberately don't give you a satisfying conclusion. How do you feel about that?
It's not about satisfying. It's about the fact that it's like a very heavy subject, and you need to deal with it in a way. You can't just like kind of bring up something like that and then just like leave it. It's not about satisfying. It's about like, I don't know, it's beyond satisfying. It's like if you bring up something of that nature and of that seriousness, like I think you need to deal with it and see it through.
I'd agree.
Otherwise, you're just like throwing stuff in for flavor, and like it's not the, you know, you can do that with certain things, but like with something like that, I don't think you can.
I think that's a valid point. Jay Diggity said, "Thanks. First of all, thank you. Isn't the Crystal Throne a ter'angreal? Might influence that culture, maybe." Yes, it is a ter'angreal, and all it does is make you want to obey the Empress when she sits on it. So I'm not sure that it, I guess, it informs slavery into their, you know, that kind of a thing. I'm not sure about that. But I agree with you, Riddhima, that I think it does need to be addressed. So, like, because I think, again, morality, I don't want the books to be sanitized, in the sense that I don't want us to apply our current, like, I think there are things that can be done differently, but pulling slavery out of the story, for instance, I don't think serves a purpose. Like, I think there are stories you can tell with it. Now, I'll give you an example of some things that I would love to see pulled out of the story, because I think that they perpetuate bad notions. Like, I don't want to see female characters brutalized to advance the story arcs for men, even where that exists in the story, right? Like, I'm not a fan of that, because I think that trope has been so used that people are used to it and they don't even realize that they're watching it, right? So I think you can modify a story to remove things like that, but I think that's less of a morality thing and more of a, what message are we sending, right? Like, I don't think having, I don't know, I maybe am going around in circles here, but
yeah, like I think there's a lot of times in the series where like male Forsaken, for example, will just be killed and that's the end of it. Right. But like female Forsaken will like be taken prisoner and like continually and brutally be tortured. That's like a continuing thing throughout the series. So like I understand, like there's things that you can change in the books to make it better, you know, like, and I don't know. I don't think that's sanitizing it. I just think that's making it better, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, we are coming up here on the end. I usually go for about an hour, and that's where we're at now. Thank you for coming on.
Of course.
So again, tell everybody where they can find you and what you're up to and all of that, and that way they can get more of you.
For sure. You can find me. My name is Riddhima, and it's spelled Riddhima. And yeah, that's my YouTube channel. You can find me on my YouTube channel, and it has all the links to all my other stuff. So yeah, thank you so much for having me on this
Anytime.
live stream. It was a lot of fun.
We'll have to do it again. And for those of you, we will be hopping into the voice chat on Discord right after this. So you are welcome to come join, chat for a bit. I'll be in there. And yeah, that's it. So I think that's it. Thanks for joining me again. Thanks everybody for watching. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that fun stuff. And we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.